Good day, and welcome to this segment of History from St. Paul's, capturing these recent images of the 18th century stone church and enjoying historic cemetery. My name is Park Ranger Michael Callahan. Today, we'll be exploring the history of the German auxiliaries who served the British Army during the American Revolution, more commonly known as Hessians. The activities of these German units are particularly relevant to this video, since a large number of German auxiliaries served in the area of St. Paul's, and we know of the likely identity of at least 6 who are buried in the site cemetery, at this site of the Grant's gravestone, which is shown here. The outbreak of fighting at Lexington and Concord in April of 1775 and the subsequent siege of Boston and Battle of Bunker Hill presented the home government in London with a critical problem. The colonists were not going to lay down their arms without their demands being met. The only solution was a demonstration of possible use of massive military force. The primary issue? The size of the British Army. The total strength of all units was less than 45,000 men. 8,000 were already in North America, with a further 27,000 in the British Isles, represented by this painting of many red-coated British troops with weapons marching through a field with trees visible. But not all the units of the British Isles were able to be deployed to North America. Remaining regiments were scattered in overseas garrisons and were also not able to be withdrawn for service in rebellious colonies. The British War Office had a simple answer to this dilemma: hire foreign troops. In 18th century Europe, this was not an uncommon occurrence. This also suited the rules of the individual states. Hiring out units of disciplined, well-trained and equipped soldiers would provide these rules with a source of income not normally available to them. Much of the money obtained was utilized to personal use of the rulers. Frederick II of Hesse-Cassel, who was shown in a military uniform in this colorful painting, on the other hand, utilized his funds to improve and expand the educational system of his state. So, although the British government and the rulers of the German states benefited from this method of providing manpower to the war effort, the colonists looked at it differently. In the early stages of the war, they still regarded themselves as loyal Englishmen, in a disagreement with the home government of certain policies. It was seen as an unfortunate conflict between fellow countrymen. The British soldiers they were fighting were seen as former allies. But once word reached the colonies regarding the use of the German auxiliaries, the enraged colonists now had a different view on the conflict. The home government was now sending foreign troops to fight them in what they had regarded as an unfortunate internal conflict which could still be resolved without continued bloodshed. But now, many regard the use of the German auxiliaries and as signs of the home government's intention to crush the rebellion whatever the cost. A deep fear resulted among many colonists the depredation upon the civilian population that would be caused by the Hessians. It was one of the factors used by the more radical elements of the independence movement in the final push towards a permanent separation with Great Britain, reflected in this painting of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Colonel William Fawcett of the British Army was tasked with establishing treaties with a number of German states to acquire the services of their soldiers. He did so beginning in late 1775 and early 1776. By the spring of 1776, most of the treaties had been signed. The states of Hesse-Cassel, Brunswick, Hesse-Hanau, Waldeck, Anspach-Beirut, and Anhalt-Zerbst agreed to provide the troops requested by the British government. Since most of these troops came from Hesse-Cassel, all the German auxiliaries can be known as Hessians, reflected in this painting of a standing, blue-coated Hessian soldier leaning on his musket and wearing a tall hat. The German auxiliaries were regular soldiers who served their own national units and their own officers. In terms of the 18th century, the Germans were termed as auxiliaries as opposed to mercenaries, were individuals who enlisted in foreign armies normally for a higher rate of pay. Some men were attained through voluntary enlistment, but many were forced into uniform through conscription or even kidnapping. The troops supplied by the states consisted mostly of infantry. Brunswick also supplied a regiment of dragoons. Most of the states also provided artillery support for their units. In addition, Hesse-Cassel, Anspach, and Brunswick also supplied units with Jaegers, both mounted and dismounted. A number of these men had been hunters in civilian life as well as game warders. They were dressed in green uniforms or armored rifles, reflecting this colorful painting. Once formally accepted into the British service, the German units were dispatched to North America. A number were posted to Canada, but a larger number landed on Staten Island, New York, and participated in the New York campaign, fighting the Battle of Brooklyn in August. Shown in this painting of many troops engaged in combat in an open field, with a damaged wooden barn visible, where the fighting abilities first came to notice of the Continentals. On 18 October, Hessian units fought at the Battle of Pell's Point, not far from St. Paul's Church, as well as a number of smaller actions in the area subsequent to the battle. Number 6 sick Hessians died in the church, which was being utilized as a hospital buried in the cemetery. Further successful actions were fought at White Plains and Fort Washington, again enhancing the Germans' reputation for being well-trained, highly disciplined, and victorious in the field of battle. This reputation, however, suffered on Christmas, 1776, when a large force of Hessians was surprised at Trenton and defeated by Washington's Continentals. Reflected in this painting many Hessian soldiers marching, some flying their weapons, some lying on the snow, wounded, and flags visible. The Germans fought in the Philadelphia campaign of 1777, at Saratoga, Bennington, the Mohawk Valley, and later in the Southern campaigns, culminating with the surrender of a large number of German troops at Yorktown in 1781. German auxiliaries also served in other areas of conflict. Throughout the conflict, the Continentals had made strong overtures to entice German troops to desert. Many did so, and some who were taken prisoner captured this painting with rows of Hessian prisoners without weapons, marching through a town with women and children looking on. During the course of the conflict, chose to remain in the newly independent United States at the conclusion of the war. It is estimated that 35,000 German auxiliaries served with the Crown forces during the war. Out of this total, somewhere between 30 and 40% did not return to Germany at the conclusion of the war. Deaths on the battlefield, of wounds and sickness accounted for others, but as noted, many decided to take advantage of the opportunity to begin a new life in a nation which offered more freedom and opportunity than their homeland. Without the service of the German auxiliaries, the British war effort would have been hampered, remembering that by 1780, Britain was engaged in a world war with the combined forces of France, Spain, and Holland. The 35,000 German auxiliaries made a significant contribution to the British war effort. Thank you for being with us today. Join us again for more History from St. Paul's.